Sometimes you just have this vision for what you want to create in Midjourney. There's a style in your head, you type up a prompt, you hit enter, and it just doesn't look the way that you want it to. So today I'm going to share with you a few different ways you can take more control over the styles you apply to your images in Midjourney. But to do this, we need to go back to the start and build upon the fundamentals of your prompt. There are a few things we need to consider. Are you accurately describing the style in your prompt? Are you going into enough detail, being specific enough? Also including things such as color, or even just having the right structure to your prompt. Now, often you will have to actually build a prompt in order to get the style you're after. So we can start off with something simple like subject and style. So if I type in something like a spooky skull for our subject, I can then just add the style at the end, like a spooky skull vintage horror screen cap. Now, you might want a little bit more detail with the skull, and you also might not get the look you're after with the actual style. But by submitting this, we can get started and make some adjustments. So I hit submit, and we get some images that are pretty close to what we're after, but maybe not exact. So we're going to come back and add this phrase in again. And keep in mind, I have my personalization turned off. Turning yours on may also help improve the quality of the images you create. But maybe things are a little too black and white. I now need to make some adjustments. I can add things in there like color, or even maybe I want to add some mist. So I'm going to, at the end, add in thick mist, muted blue/purple. So I've added in some elements and I've added in some color. So color is a big part of style. If you understand what colors are going to be in the style you're trying to create, add them into your prompt. So this time I hit submit, and now we get some images with that color. However, I feel like we've lost some of that authentic looking film grain. So then we need to start building upon it again. So we come back and then we add in old film grain, submit. And now I've got the style of image I'm after here. Now, so far we're being quite vague and simple with our prompt, which is okay if you get the image you want, but you may want to get more specific with the subject and the elements inside of the prompt. But the problem is that adding more words can overcomplicate things, and therefore your style can start to diminish. So let's jump in and look at a few ways that we can tackle that problem. So I like this image here. I'm going to add the same prompt, but instead of just having a spooky skull, this time I'm going to say, so now I have a spooky skull sits in some wet grass next to a tombstone. A hand is reaching to pick up the skull, and then I have our usual description here. So if I submit it this time, we get some good images, but I don't know if the style really matches our original down here that I really like. But there is something we can do in this. We can start to change the prompt structure. The further towards the start of a prompt certain words are, the more priority they get. So we can change the order. So if I come back and add the same prompt in, one thing I can experiment with is taking all of these style elements and moving them to the start of the prompt instead of the subject. So I'm going to hit Control X to move those out, pop them at the start. I'm going to add a full stop just to add a nice clean break between the stylized words and the subject. I submit. So you can see how we were able to improve the purple grainy horror style by restructuring our prompt, moving it to the start of the prompt to prioritize it more. These are some of the things you can play with in your prompt in order to better get the result that you're after. But also, you need to be a bit more accurate with your description. So this means learning how to phrase certain styles and improving your visual vocabulary so you can be more descriptive in a more accurate way, giving Midjourney better instructions for creating the image. But it also helps to understand styles and do a bit of research. So what you can do is actually research art styles or movements or even artists to improve what it is you're creating by referring to them in your prompt. Now, there are a few resources you can go to in order to learn some of these styles. The first is you can just simply Google art styles or artists and discover some people that way that you can try as a phrase in your prompt. But also even asking ChatGPT can be a good guide, and you can then try that as well. But also try picking up a few different art books. You may find reading these will actually give you some different language you can try, but also a visual representation. But also I have a series of videos in a playlist which showcase various different styles that you can try, and I highly recommend checking that out. I'll pop a link in the description below. And if you like that, I also have a complete style pack with over 1,000 styles that you can try, and that might be something that you might want to check out as well. And now so far in this video, we've used a screen cap from a vintage horror movie, but just think about other mediums. There are genres, there are mediums like there's TV, there's movies, video games, photography, also art such as paintings, sketches. Any way you can describe the medium or art type will help you get a certain look, but also color, texture, anything you can do that will help you describe the image that you're after. But If reorganizing the prompt structure like we have so far still isn't quite getting the result that you want, then the next tip is to move on to style references. So if I come back to our images here, and I'm going to actually come down and add this prompt in, but I'm going to get rid of all of the style phrasing. So I just have a spooky skull, sits some wet grass next to a tombstone, the hand is reaching to pick up the skull. Now, if I submit that, what we're going to get isn't really going to work, but I'll just do it so we can quickly demonstrate. Now, having stripped this of the style, we get exactly what we asked for. So what I can do is add this prompt in again, but this time I'm going to scroll down to the image that we actually like, which is this one here that represents the style we're after. And then I can drag that up as a style reference. So what I've done is I've prompted to create an image which represents the style. I have a prompt representing what I want in the scene, and by using this tool, I can apply this style to that prompt. So now when I submit, and then we get these images which show the scene exactly as described in the prompt, but using the style we were able to achieve before that. So now we're thinking outside the box and not just relying on a single prompt, but by splitting them up, by really nailing down the look and then describing the scene, we're able to put those two together with a style reference and have more control over what it is we're creating, because we're giving direct visual information to Midjourney on the style and getting very descriptive with the scene. And what I really like about using style references is the simple fact that I can take this style reference that I've created here, completely change the prompt, and still get something that is consistent, because I'm giving a much more direct visual representation of what I want to see to Midjourney by using a style reference. But of course, because we're able to upload images as style references, we don't need to rely on our own creations. What we can do is find images from other artists or images we found online. So I took this one here, which was painted by Hieronymus Bosch. So if I drag that in as a style reference, add in this prompt, and submit that, and it's quite easy to infuse his style, the colors he's used, and the overall feel and layout of the image into some of these prompts. Now, they're not all perfect, but most of them have come pretty close. But coming back to this Grim Reaper image here, if I decided I wanted to adjust how much that style reference actually applies to my image, I can come down here to use the prompt again. But at the end, I'm going to add --SW for style weight. Now, the default is at 100. So I can go anywhere from 0 all the way up to 1000. So if I submit this at 1000, and you'll see that style is dialed up to max, although it was already pretty strong. But when I switch that to 0 or even 1, it's basically non-existent. And as you climb up through, you can see how the style slowly gets a little bit more intense as you increase that style weight. Now, if you can't find a single image which represents the style you're aiming for, what you can do is consider combining several different images to get the style you're after. So this one here we did with our Hieronymus Bosch painting. If I come down here and use the prompt and add that style reference in, now I head back to my create page, add in our skull image, and now we can combine these two images as style references. I submit, and now we've been able to combine those two styles together, and you can see how much it's worked on this particular image. But what if I want to see more influence from Hieronymus Bosch and less from the purple image? Well, what I can do is I can click on one of these, and I'm going to come up the top here and go copy prompt. Because what we can do is we can actually score the individual images. We just can't do it easily on the website. So I'm going to head over to Discord. I type in /imagine, paste in the prompt. And if I want to know which image is which, what I might do is simply copy this, paste the URL in to my address bar. So I can see the first URL is the Hieronymus Bosch image. So now I know that the purple image is the second image. So I'm going to type in 2 colons and put in 0.5. The default being 1. By adding these 2 colons and a number, I'm scoring this image at half the strength. But I can also come up to the first image if I want to and go colon 2, making sure that I have a space between the 2 and the address. So now I want to add double strength to the Hieronymus Bosch image, but also downplay the strength of the purple image. I could just leave this at 1, but I wanted to demonstrate how you can add this to the end of both URLs. You can even just leave this off entirely. But now I submit that prompt, and now what we've got is leaning a lot more towards that Hieronymus Bosch style. But if I want to make another adjustment, I can actually come down here. As long as I have /remix turned on, so I type in /remix to activate that, I can click on the reroll button and I can change these values. So maybe instead of the 0.5, I change this back to 1, submit again. And again, we've been able to swing some more of that purple grainy style back into the image, and we just got to find that sweet spot between those two styles. So now we've been able to build our style with prompts and image tools to get the look we're after. But what if we're still exploring and trying to find a style to use? Once again, you can go back, check out that style playlist I mentioned earlier, but otherwise there's also the Style Explorer, which shares something called style codes. So I'm going to show you how you can use these style or SREF codes, as well as using the Style Explorer to find very unique visual styles that are very stable and reliable that you can try in your images. So I've got this image here, a man's eyes, intense angry stare. If I want to simply click to add that prompt to my prompt bar, using a style code is pretty simple. The first way to actually access it is to type in --SREF. So we're using a style reference again, but this time instead of an image, we're going to type in random. And when I submit that, notice how we get this very distinct pink style, but we also get a code now that we can reuse. So if I want to use the same prompt again, but I change it from a man's eyes, intense angry stare to something like an astronaut, we get that same pink style applied to that. But coming back down, I'm going to use this prompt again with the intense stare. Now, if I want to, I can type in SREF random again, but if I want to explore a few different styles, I can type in --repeat. Depending on your plan, if you have the $30 a month plan, you can do up to 10. I think it's only sort of 5 or 6 for one of the smaller plans, but if I do a repeat of say 5 and submit, I'll get 5 different SREF codes. So I submit that, and notice how we get this now orange photographic style with one code, and then just above it, this sort of more muted black and white sort of style with a different code. We get a different code again. We're actually able to discover various different codes by simply typing in random and repeating that prompt 5 times. But what's really interesting too is if I use this prompt again, if I just change one number like this 8 here to a 7 and submit that, notice how changing one single number changes the style rather drastically. Now, using SREF random or punching in different numbers is not the only way to discover styles. If I come up here to the Explore page, and we can see images that have been created by users of Midjourney here. But where it says images over here, over the left there is styles. If I click on styles, we can explore various different styles to try, and these are all other SREF codes with a preview. Now, of course, we can go to hot. So this is random at the moment. We can go to hot and see what the most popular styles are. We can also go top day, week, or month. And likes works a little bit differently. I'll cover that in a minute. But I'll come back to hot here, and maybe I decide I want to try this style. If I hover over try style, it will use my most recent prompt. So I can click that. When I come back to create, basically submits the prompt with that SREF code. But I head back to explore, and what this means is even if I just come up here and hit the up arrow, it brings up my most recent prompt, including that code. But I can remove that. I can even adjust this. So intense angry stare, I can say fiery eyes. I can change that a bit if I want to. But I can go through and just simply hit try style, find something else like this. And I can just simply try a bunch of these out, and it's submitting them every time I hit try style. If you need to slow things down a little bit, you can simply click this little T button and it will add it to the end of your prompt. But I'll delete that. I can also click on each style and it brings up a preview of images using that style, and I get the same options to try it or use it below here. But this is where it gets really interesting. If I come up the top, you'll notice there's a likes section here. If I click on that, I have a handful of styles here that I like, and I can come back and use these at any time to see what results I get. So I can actually organize my styles into this like page. So when I head back to hot, if I really like this style, I hit the little heart icon. Maybe I really like this yellow beachy style, hit the heart icon. I come back up to likes, and they're added in there. So now I can find styles, heart them, and keep them organized in this page for future use. So that's a really, really handy tool. But also, if I come back to the hot page here, I can also do a search. So maybe I type in something like surrealism, and I get a bunch of surrealist styles. So once again, I can try these out. Some of these look pretty similar, so we'll look for some different ones. Maybe I type in something like biomech, and now I get these cool kind of biomech styles, and I can go through and try all those out as well. So you can search for styles here, and if you find any you like, again, heart them, and then you can come back to your likes page and use these at a later date. But while I've been doing all this, I've been trying all these various different styles. So if I head back to create, we have our images from before, and notice how we have all these various different styles of images we've been able to create simply by exploring that Style Explorer. So that's a really handy way to discover styles and apply them to your images. So you might see something like this and think that maybe the style is a bit strong. Once again, we can use style weight. So if I go use prompt, type in at the end here, --SW50, which is half of the default, I can submit that. And now we've been able to dial the style down a little bit. But if you really want to test out a style code a little bit more in depth, you can actually use multiple different prompts by using what's called permutations, where you add in little curly brackets, separate your prompts with a comma, and then add the SREF code after the curly bracket ends. You can actually experiment and try various different prompts within that code. So you have a few different images you can scroll through and check out to see if you want to keep using that SREF code. Now this same method, it works if you leave the permutations in the prompt bar and then go to the Style Explorer. You can simply click Try Style and it will submit all the prompts in your permutations so you can actually explore a bit more in depth very quickly and easily. Now, much like SREF images, you can actually blend more than one code and sort of like mix styles together. And this can be a lot of fun to get very unique images. So I'll show you how that works also. I'm going to actually just click on the eye prompt for now. So we have an eye. I'm going to go back to the Style Explorer. Instead of hitting Try Style, I'm going to click on the T box here to add the SREF code at the end. Because another thing I can do is keep on adding style codes. So I can do these manually, or I can go through and add these down here. And I can combine these 3 SREF codes similar to what we did before with the actual SREF images. So now I have 3 different codes. I submit that. And what we've got here is incredibly unique because we've blended 3 codes together. But also, like before, we can weight the codes much like we did with the images. But this time we don't have to go to Discord. Once again, if I use this prompt, I take the first code and type in :0.6. And maybe for the second code, I type in :1.5. And the very last one, I type in :1.8. So I'm dialing these 2 styles down a little bit, this one up a little bit, and I can adjust this style between the 3 codes. Once again, I submit, and you see we still have that same look. It's just kind of balanced things out a little bit more in the favor of some of the other SREF codes. But to add the final cherry on top, this time I go to use. I have different weights on the styles, and I can still add in style weight if I find this is a bit too intense. I'm going to make it 60. So now I've weighted the styles. I've given it a strength of 60, so a little less than the default. And now when I submit, and now because of the added flexibility away from those styles, we get something slightly different again. So we've covered a lot here. The ability to not only build a style for your prompt, but bring that in as a style reference or import external images as a style reference, using SREF codes, exploring these styles. We can use any one of these techniques or even blend them together in order to take more control and create something a little bit more unique. But also, if you like these kind of deep dives where you get all the little techniques to truly master Midjourney, then check out my Midjourney course. There's a link in the description below. It starts off at a simple beginner level and goes up to the more advanced deep dives as you progress through the course. Once again, there's a link in the description below if you want to check that out. But if we actually finally create an image and a style that we like, maybe we don't want to keep on referencing all the different image URLs or codes or all the different sort of settings that we've had to use in order to get that style. So what we can do is solidify it into a mood board, which makes things a lot more convenient as we can just draw on a simple mood board code to get the style we're after when creating images in the future. So now we've been able to blend and create a style and dial it down to a level we like. We can now actually try to sort of cement this into a mood board. So the way that works is I have these images here. What I can do is simply click Use Prompt. So I get all of these settings back again, but this time I'm going to add in permutations several different prompts again. So I use my curly brackets. I type in a man's eyes with intense angry stare, a dog walking in a park, a woman's face, nature, a city street, and finally, Error 64K, which is just a fun prompt I like to use to create sort of surreal type images. So it doesn't really matter as long as you have a little bit of variety in here. These are different prompts we're going to use to supply our mood board. So again, I'm going to submit this. And you can see we've been able to create our images with a very particular style. I love what it's done with a woman's face here, nature, a city street, and we can review to see which ones we like. Now, if I want to see more like this, and I want to sort of lean into this style a bit more, I can just go in and rerun a few of these. And now I've got enough images here that I feel I can use to create my mood board of this style. Also, if you're looking for more mood boards to try, I will leave a video card at the end of this video linking off to another video where I share a whole bunch of free mood boards that you can try in your images in Midjourney. So now we're going to create our mood board by coming down the left here, and we used to go to personalize, but now it has moved down to its own tab under mood boards. If I click on that, you'll see a bunch of my mood boards here. I'm going to create a new mood board. I'm going to give it a name, so I think something like black and white glitch grunge. And now I can just click on Add from Gallery and select the images that I think have nailed the style I want to recreate. I'm holding down Shift and simply clicking. Now you notice I haven't clicked all of them because some of them are a little less stylized than I'd like, but it's probably not a bad idea to throw one or two in there. But overall, we have images selected for our mood board. I hit back, and now all of our images are in this mood board. So now I can use it in a prompt. Say something like a woman's face smiling, and because I clicked use in prompt, it's added our mood board code in there. So now if I submit that, and now we've been able to use SREF codes to create a mood board. And you can see the images we've created do match our style. They've got a few of those elements in there, so we can actually use these methods to formalize a style in a mood board. And again, at any time, if I want to use it, I can click here, or if I go to my personalization menu, I can filter, type in glitch grunge, and under mood boards, I can simply add it here to turn it on, and then I can create using that mood board. But there's also a lot to master with mood boards that give you even more options to create something really stylistic and useful for your images. So what I recommend is actually checking out this video, which will help you master mood boards. Or if you just want those free mood boards, check out this video on the screen right now. That's the video for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.